Okay, well, we better get started here. What's in the chat here? Okay, so we have an advising type question. Let's look at that first in the chat. So if Conrad's asking related classes other than the 151, which is the web design class, you also have CSC 141. So let's see here. All right, so classes that are related, if you guys can see the board here, CSC 141, which is Intro to Programming, that's Java, it's programming. The CSC 151, which is web design. Also in the art department, I'll have to look up the numbers for them, but in the art department, they offer 3D, like 3D design. So like 3D Studio Max, they use Rhino. They have like a page layout class too, like graphics design kind of stuff. So if that's kind of what you're interested in, that would be a good fit as well. Photoshop type stuff.
What about BCT classes?
The BCT classes would be decent electives. It really depends on what your focus is. They tend to focus more on like Microsoft Office type skills. So like Excel, spreadsheets, which I guess Excel is a spreadsheet. So word processing, spreadsheets, PowerPoint, stuff like that, which are definitely good skills to have. If you're in the workplace, there's actually a lot you can do with spreadsheets, stuff like that. So, so the 130 and 140 will be back to back. And we'll probably have kind of like a co-joined lecture a little bit like we do for the 110 and the 115. So you're not going to have a big gap in your schedule. So Colton, that's a good question as well. When we were doing labs and stuff that were face-to-face, they were, we had a break for lunch and stuff as well. So you guys that are looking at the programming classes, the programming class is oftentimes at noon. So if you're looking at 141 as an option, I believe that's at noon for the Zoom sessions. That class can be taken any quarter on your 2-year degree program. The programming class is like fall quarter of the second year. But if you want to take it early, you can. It's not, whichever one you want it, whatever fits into your schedule the best. Or if you are running out of, if you've already gotten your program. So the program requirements, Brandon, like the 100T class, so you've got math. And the math can be math 99, it can be 100T, it could be 107, or any higher level math class, right? So Brandon Harrington, you said you're looking at 100T, but it looked like it was full already. Is in the chat there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. So Brandon, Nicholas asks, no, I don't teach the programming classes. So we have 2 other instructors that teach computer programming. So there's so one person teaches the Java class and another person teaches the 151, which is web design. And then 152 is actually JavaScript. And you don't, if you're already have a little bit of programming under your belt and you kind of are interested in that, CSC 152. Taylor, if you passed 101 here at the college, then you're good. It should be on your transcript still. So yes, if you don't need to retake it, yeah, nope. And that's, yeah, generally speaking, transcripts, even if they're quite a few years old, if you've taken a class, it still counts. So, so yeah, as far as your degree requirements, you've got math, you've got communications. So it's like 210 or not both, or 220. So that's interpersonal or public speaking. You could also take BCT 116, which is professional work relations. That is only 3 credits instead of 5. So if you're looking at maybe doing a transfer degree at some point, COM 210 or 220 fits into a transfer degree, whereas the BCT class doesn't, or I mean, it would be a restricted elective. So you've got math, and then also as Taylor was just mentioning, English, good old English 101 is required as well. So those are your degree requirements for graduation. And then you also need to take the 141 class at some point in the 2 years. And then after that, it's pretty much elective. So you do need to take some elective classes as well. to have enough credits to graduate. So these are good questions to have before we get to registration time. So I appreciate you guys reaching out and asking those in chat.
What do you recommend for second year spring quarter?
For second year of spring quarter. So if you haven't, have you already taken the programming class, the 141?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would be looking for the 142 class. If you're interested in, I mean, depending on how you did in the class, or if it was something that kind of interested you, the learning more computer programming, I think, is a good thing. Or looking at the 152 class for JavaScript. So learning a scripting language would be really useful as well. And you don't have to have taken the 151 before, if you've got, especially if you've already taken the Java class. I would look for one of those two. So the 142 or 152. So the higher level class of either one of those would be a good elective class to take in the spring. That's a couple quarters out though. So yeah, but you can look for those. Yeah, anyway, look for those at any time. Elective credits, I will pretty much take any elective credit for the degree. So as long as it's got a letter grade attached, if you wanted to take a psychology class or history class or whatever, that's fine too. If you're maybe thinking about doing a transfer degree down the road, that would be a good thing to look at as well. So, you know, I've had people take accounting classes. Maybe they want to do their own business. I'm cool with that. Spanish class, if you want to learn Spanish or whatever, anything you guys want to do for an elective credit, I'm pretty open to.
So question, for winter quarter, would I just continue on the program guide and just go ahead and do CTS 130 and 140 next term?
Yep, correct. Yeah, if you're looking at the program guide is online. If you need help finding it, it's kind of buried in there. It's under 2-year degrees, non-transfer, and then it's under network, computer technology, network administration. I can find that for you or show you.
I've got it here. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Brandon, I'm doing the same thing. So if you want to reach out, just let me know.
Okay, thanks, Kyle.
yeah. So the 130 and 140 is kind of the next on the hit list. And you know, people have asked about labs and stuff like that. And
is that you do the 130 and 140?
Yeah, we're doing the 130 and 140, and then we'll try to make it. I'm still stuck a little bit on what to do for labs. I'm trying to figure out, like, if you guys came in, you know, we could do like 6 or 8 people at each time, and then like have an alternating lab. So like Thursdays would be one group and Fridays would be another, for people that wanted to come in and set up a server and get some stuff going here in the classroom. I think would be fun too. So, but yeah, if you guys have questions about registration, the Discord apps, I have notifications turned off, but I still check it pretty regularly. So if you've got questions, you can message me on Discord pretty much any time of the day or night. If I'm up, I'll answer if you have questions about registration or anything like that. So for my classes, it's not too big a deal. Like, you know, you guys move through as a cohort. So there's, you know, 20 of you or so. Those classes will be open. But if you're trying to get into math or English or communications, you do want to get in and register as soon as you can, so that you get the class that you want. It looks like 100T might already be filling up. If it's online, I'm surprised it doesn't have a few extra seats in it or something like that. But
I think the 100T was in person.
was in person? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I don't know I'm not sure what they're running for that. So, so yeah, check it out. All right. So one of the things we're gonna do as an assignment for joint assignment between the software and the hardware class is to research and come up with a computer system. Now, this is supposed to be kind of like a fun idea. Most of the stuff we've gone over already. This is the one from last year, and we can reconfigure this or make it, you know, add some stuff to it. So I'm going to share this with you on the screen here, and let's see. Actually, I'll post it up into the discussion area as well. So I'll just copy and paste this all into the discussion area. All right, now it's letting me add one. I think I was in like an old view or something here. So paste. All right, so I'm throwing this in the discussion area for the hardware class. I'll cross post it for both of them, but and I'll just throw it up on the screen here. So basically it's just an RFQ, so request for quotation for a system. And we can modify this. Again, this is the one for last year. I'll put this, share this screen up here. So we've got all on the same page. So this would be pretty common. Now, again, I don't recommend this as a business. If you are interested in building computers and you know, that kind of thing, that's great. But as a business, it's a pretty tough business for anyone to kind of break into, mainly because the where is you guys, lost you guys on the screen here. I guess I don't need to see your faces, but you're all of a sudden the video panel disappeared. So it's nice to kind of see you guys. All right, so you guys seeing the request for quotation screen? Okay, all right. So basically you'll get an RFQ. We can modify this and kind of come up with something else or add a higher level. So for instance, you know, for the hard disk drive, you know, I would probably go for something bigger, you know, a 500 gig, maybe a 500 gig SSD. They're around 60, 70, 80 bucks at this point, depending on which brand you get. Format wise, you know, SATA regular format. Did anybody see the article I posted? I think I posted it to Discord about they're making an NVMe drive that has platters. I'll pull that open too, but so basically, you've got a format difference between having, you know, a traditional hard drive looking thing, or you could have M.2 format, which looks like a stick of RAM. But as I was mentioning, if you, in terms of having a business that's actually building computers for people, I wouldn't recommend that as any kind of business. I mean, if you're trying to, like, you know, put something together and you're buying, you know, a processor, RAM, hard drive, all the bits and pieces, versus something like Dell, you know, a big company buying a whole bunch of them, you're going to get they're going to get a lot better deal on their hardware, right? In terms of putting this together. But for us, if we're just interested in kind of building one for personal use, things like that, it's kind of a nice option. Some of you have built your own computer already, or modified ones, and it's, you know, relatively straightforward to assemble one. But you know, in the terms of the troubleshooting, like we looked at this computer that I brought in the other day, and after you guys left, I discovered that the fan for the radiator on the front had come unplugged, but that wouldn't have prevented this from getting a BIOS screen, you know, something popping up on the onboard video. So, you know, in terms of troubleshooting, I think the motherboard is actually dead on that. You know, it's getting power, so because I can see the fans spinning up on the video card. Getting sidetracked, but yeah, I mean, in terms of troubleshooting and building a computer, putting one together is one thing. Troubleshooting is kind of that next step. All right, so let's take a look at the RFQ. This is from last year. You know, you guys, we can modify this, come up with something else. We talked about, yes, we need a 9,000 watt power supply. You need to power a small space heater and stuff, and you know, whatever we want to come up with, usually we do this exercise and it's like, okay, we have some idea in mind, and then also some type of price point, right? Sometimes it's like build the, you know, best gaming machine you can for 1,500 bucks or 1,000 bucks or 500 or whatever the price point comes in at. All right, so here's, this isn't my real ad. Does anybody recognize that address, by the way?
I do. It was a very good lawyer.
Okay, to whom it may concern, we're interested in building a computer, gather supply. Yeah, so this one, the idea was that we were going to be using it with a VR headset, which is still a good thing to kind of shoot for. You know, the VR headsets require pretty good system specs to be able to make them run efficiently. League of Legends. That's so Martin's asking about League of Legends. Now that doesn't have real higher system requirements, does it? Playing League. I never really got into that one too much, but so that would be another League of Legos is even better. Yeah. The Lego movies are actually pretty good. Some of those Lego movies are good. So we don't want to get so in terms of specs, you guys can take a look at these. It's under the discussion thread. So if there's stuff that we want to add to or improve on that has changed in the last year, that would be stuff that we can throw into the discussion thread. And then also kind of think about a price, right? So how much should we spend on this? So it's pretty open. What are the things that are going to cost the most money? Like in terms of if you're building a computer, what are the things that are really going to be variable in terms of your budget?
Your CPU and the video card.
Graphics card for sure.
Yeah, so graphics card is going to be a big chunk. Now, this is also assuming that we're buying a gaming chair. Yeah, you need the gaming chair that's got the speakers on it and the subwoofer and shakes and stuff. And so this is assuming we're buying these components new. You can use PC parts picker, stuff like that to kind of find your parts. I've had people like, oh, I can find that on eBay or whatever. And yeah, so this isn't counting like buying used. Somebody on here bought two 1080 Ti's the other day for a good price, but this is assuming we're buying everything new from like, Newegg or Amazon or whatever, right? So, okay, yeah, so your video card and your processor are going to be probably the most fluctuating in price in terms of like, because I left this pretty open. I mean, so the processor could be like a pretty high-end processor, and you're going to spend, $400, $500, $600 or more on just the CPU. And the video card, we might want to up the RAM on that. This is from last year's specs. So this is saying at the minimum it needs 4 gigs of RAM on the video card. But if we come up with some other stuff like, yeah, we want it to run, be able to run the specs that'll run the HTC Vive or another VR headset that's out there, that might determine the specs. Or in the past, we've said, hey, it needs to be able to run, whatever video game is the high-end video game du jour that really pushes machines too. So I'm open to suggestions on this. And then also on the price, right? So we have to set some kind of price wise on it, or people are just like, I'll take the most expensive everything and put it together. And you end up with like, but mostly this is just for fun, right? So, it gives us an idea of something to shoot for. So at each level, it's like, okay, you have to think about it a little bit, what type of hard drive do I want? What kind of CPU do I want? And kind of do a little bit of analysis on the machine in terms of giving some thought to what we want to actually put together. So, and some people have never put one together. So just kind of thinking about everything that needs to go into play there. And then you guys will write up a proposal. So this is an RFQ, and then you would write up something kind of similar, but as a response. So you'd have to write this up. I don't need pictures. Some people have like copied and pasted pictures of the CPU or pictures of the motherboard. I don't really need that. And I don't want you just printing out your shopping cart from PC parts picker. So I've had that too. So this should look like a document that you guys are turning in. So bust out, Google Docs is good. If you guys are needing a word processor, how many people have used LibreOffice or OpenOffice? Those are both good too. So if you need a word processor, those are free. And of course, Google Docs is always there, and that's nice too. So if you are, something happens to your computer, whatever, then your documents are online. You don't have to worry about losing them or anything like that. So, all right, so that's on our discussion board. I also realized your software class is a little bit behind the hardware class. You guys just had an exam, right? You guys do okay on that?
Yeah, I did pretty well. It's a good one.
It's a good one. All right, well, that's good. My intention isn't for them.
Good.
Yeah, my intention isn't for them to be like a huge pain in the butt for you, but at the same time, I know quizzes aren't always fun. These are take-home exams, so you're able to hopefully, find the answers, so to speak, somewhere in the book.
the hardware stuff is always a bit easier for me than the networking.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do, so that's a good comment. I'm not sure who mentioned that. A lot of that
It was
has
Greg.
to do with the book itself, right? So the Network Plus, if you're dealing with networking, the Network Plus is usually about up here in terms of difficulty, and then the A+ exams are a little less difficult. So typically, if somebody is jumping in to do their certifications, they would do their A+ exams, and there's 2 of them. They would do those first, and then they might think about doing this either the Network Plus or Security Plus if they were doing through CompTIA, through those certifications. But I feel for you. I've tried to find books for the networking one that are more exciting or easier to read, and they're just not out there. So yes, you're not the first people to make that comment about the book itself. So the other option would be to wait to do networking like winter or spring quarter instead of bumping it right into the beginning of the mix there. So missing there. Okay, so yeah, you guys just had looks like your quiz was on, clicking around here. So yeah, you just had chapters 4 and 5. So your next one is going to come up in the software class. And I'll try to make that due before I'll try to, just reading the chat there. Taylor says he's old. None of you guys are old.
Martin? Yeah, no, Martin's a little troll. He's a very young troll.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I remember Windows XP. Damn it. Yeah, we used to walk uphill both ways to class. All right. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, the software class, you have another quiz coming up in that. I will try not to make your Thanksgiving break. My daughter was just complaining about, she's going to school, and she says, yeah, they have all this homework due right after Thanksgiving break, and she's going to try to drive home. So at any rate, we're going to try to get this stuff squared away. So you'll have stuff due, and then we'll come back from our Thanksgiving break and then kind of start up again. So we've got another, what is today, the 15th, about another week or so to get stuff done. And then we'll have a little break for Thanksgiving, and then we'll come back on that Monday. So, all right. Again, I've got way too much stuff open. So.
Hey, it might not be I'm sorry, but we're talking about advising. I'm
no.
trying to find, so my academic plan, I need to do English 101, but I'm not seeing English 101 at all when I browse classes.
There's
97 then 201. So
there's a problem then, because they offer English 101 like every quarter.
Right. Okay. I'm just not looking in the right place. Maybe.
I don't. Does it have like an? Let me look. That you're on CTC link.
Yeah, I am. I'm there right now. Browsing the classes. Winter 22, undergraduate subject English.
Any other students help them out there? I'm trying to get logged in here to see.
Oh, I can maybe call. I just found it funny because I'm like, I found everything else, and everything else is listed there, but not the English.
Yeah. Is anybody else logged in and looked for English classes or something like that? Because they've got to be in there. So I'm under class search. I'm on the main college website here. Class search. And
when I'm back on my main computer, I can take a look too, and just kind of help out and give you some reach out, Kyle.
Yeah, so make sure you're under winter 2022 for the quarter. And I'm searching for any department, and then
so there's like 2 different English categories. You want to go to the one that doesn't have the and sign on it. And it's in there.
I see that there's English, the and sign, and then there's just plain English.
Plain English is where you're going to find 101.
Okay, thank you. I was just in the same.
I hear what you're saying, but I unfortunately cannot see that.
Okay, so are you guys seeing the screen here, Kyle? Okay, so I'm looking at, this is on the main college website. It was kind of goofy under your class search. And I'm new to CTC Link too. This is a brand new, they switched over to this, other colleges have switched over as well, but ours was kind of just recently did this. So So here's where you're talking about, I just did any department. And then subject was English. So I left this, the second category open. I just said any department. And on this one, like he's saying, you had English, and then you had this English with the and symbol. And it's the first one. So then I did search. And I can say, I can uncheck and say, I want to see all the classes, not just open classes. And I'm not seeing 101 either.
Nice. All right, cool.
It could be that you have to do like the prerequisite test. Sometimes they make you do the
Oh,
testing
no, that's
before you
all.
get to the class.
Right. No, that's all
I
taken
should be
care
able
of.
to-
I just need to sign up. Yeah.
Okay, so if I did the English and, now I'm seeing the 101s. That was, and I don't know what the difference is with English and the and 101, or so now I'm seeing 101, a whole bunch of them, Kyle.
Got it. Good to go. Appreciate it.
Okay, so and that's good information for me too. I'm new to CTC Link, and anybody else that's looking for English classes, they're under this. And I think that's a course descriptor that's common for other colleges as well. So having that little and symbol in there. And as far as hybrid or online, you guys can choose whichever ones you want. Lots of different teachers here. Oh, it's English 111. So, okay. So yeah, I'm glad we're getting some of that squared away. You guys want to make sure you get registered for stuff when you when it's due.
Saw Mr. Johnson on there. Is he doing English 111 now?
It looked like he was for English 111. Yeah, it was.
Oh, he was my English 101 teacher. He's awesome.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, Jack Johnson, right? Yeah, good. Yeah, I know a few of the people that teach here. That we have a lot of English teachers that I don't know that teach like part-time or teach just certain classes, and so I don't know a lot of the part-time instructors, right? So. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at RAID here as well. And the one that we didn't really talk about on Wednesday was the RAID 10 or RAID 1+0, which is a little bit different. You probably aren't going to run into it too much, but when you guys are looking at motherboards too, on this exercise that we're doing, I think what you'll find is that almost all the motherboards you're looking at now support RAID configuration. So it's pretty common that, a personal use motherboard, especially if it's what they would call like a performance motherboard or something that's kind of enthusiast, somebody's building their own computer, they're going to want something that they can maybe overclock. It's going to have some extra features. It might have a better sound card built into it, stuff like that. So the idea is that, you've got these options for RAID configuration as well. So basically RAID 10 and RAID 0+1, they're trying to explain this a little bit. I was trying to find a graphic that would be a better explanation for it. So basically what they're doing is kind of creating a stripe set and then having a mirror of the stripe set. So you've got two different options here. Here's a pretty good picture, I guess. I like pictures when we're talking about RAID because then you've got kind of a good I'm getting sorry, I get distracted by the chat. It's like, oh, squirrel. So look like Keanu Reeves' lost cousin. Yeah, I'd take that as a compliment. There you go. He's talking about Taylor there in this. So that's the other advantage to having your little screen on. You guys can get to know each other a little bit, and we get to see people's cats walking around and stuff like that. So that's always fun. All right, so let's take a look at RAID configurations. So remember that RAID 0 is striping. They'll refer to that. There's no redundancy there. And the reason there's not any redundancy is, you know, if you think about taking like 2 decks of cards and shuffling them together, and then, but they're 2 identical decks, right? So there's 2 identical decks, and then somebody says, hey, you know, I want you to pick out all the cards from the first deck or all the cards from the second deck. Well, you just shuffled them all together and they were identical. So it's impossible to do that. So striping's kind of like that. And the reason it makes it faster, as I mentioned on Wednesday, is that your disk controller, so the controller that's built into the motherboard, or even if it's doing it via software, but software RAID does have a little bit of some advantages, but mainly there's disadvantages. I went with software RAID, as I discussed, and they call it storage spaces. Windows 10 calls it storage spaces. And the reason I did that is that I was worried about long-term, if my motherboard failed, I would have to find the identical controller to be able to rebuild the RAID array. Whereas with software RAID, I was sacrificing some speed. And the idea was, well, geez, if my motherboard fails, I can reinstall Windows 10, plug those hard drives back in, and go back into the storage spaces and have it reallocate those disks. But striping is basically done for performance reasons. So RAID 0 is striping, doesn't provide any redundancy. You're taking the controller and it's writing to both drives at once, or very close to simultaneously, and reading from both drives at the same time. So you're doubling or almost doubling your read-write performance. Okay, so here's RAID 10 or RAID 1+0. And the RAID 0 up here, that's your disk striping. And then you've got two sets of RAID 1. Now remember, RAID 1 is a mirror. So in this case, you're going to need 4 drives to make this happen. Whereas with, you know, just a straight up mirror, you could do it with 2 drives. Or RAID 5, which we talked about a little bit. I'll see if I can find a good picture for RAID 5. RAID 5, you need 3 drives to make that happen. So here it's showing the 2 mirrors, two RAID 1 mirrors, and then those are striped together. So it's going to write information to this mirror and write information to that mirror at the same time. So basically it's kind of explaining that RAID 10, you have both the advantages of RAID 1 mirror and the striping. It gives you fault tolerance, it gives you better performance. Downsides, you know, obviously requires quite a few hard drives, and you are only getting half the storage space of those 4 drives. So if you have 4 2 terabyte drives, you're only going to get the storage space out of, you know, 2 of them. All right, disadvantages, again, yeah, 50% of the storage capacity is because you're mirroring everything. It's expensive because it requires a lot of disks to implement. I'll put this in the chat here. This is the pretty decent little, I don't need that. And the book goes over this too, but I always like kind of getting some extra pictures or some more information from other sources. I find the book's pictures sometimes to be a little lacking. Not that these pictures are great, but. Okay, RAID 5, they're showing this with 4 disks. You can do it with 3 disks at a minimum. So basically, each of these disks contains information about the other disks that would potentially fail. You can only lose 1 hard drive with the RAID 5 configuration though. So it's fast, you get a fair amount of space out of it. Okay, does provide fault tolerance, and like I say, it's, but you can only lose 1 hard drive, which again, if you're keeping an eye on your RAID configuration, you should be monitoring it and then have it set up so that it notifies you if there's a fault. One of the programs that we have used here in class is FreeNAS. How many of you are familiar with the term network attached storage?
I am. Good old
Wilfred?
NAS.
Okay. I have to just ignore the chat for a while. I get too sidetracked. So it's like, all right, see what's in there. All right. So network attached storage is the idea of, it just shows up kind of like a shared drive. You don't need to have an operating system like Windows that's running to share it. So a network attached storage device, Synology makes one. So here, I'll show you a Synology NAS.
Is that similar to having like cloud storage?
It is, except you own the cloud and it's on your own network. So it's kind of similar to having cloud-based storage. And Synology, you know, those network attached storage devices can also be accessed through the internet if you open up the right ports. So here's, I'll try and find a good picture of one here. I've got way too many tabs open. Not what their website is, want some pictures here. So, okay. All right, so here's a good example. This is the 920 Plus. So typically when you buy one of these, you are buying one that's empty, and then you will fill it up with your own hard drives. So basically it configures a RAID configuration. It has firmware, like an operating system firmware that's set up to it. And that's all it does is file management. It has a nice little GUI thing that you can access through a web browser. There's also some software that you can run. So they vary in price depending on which size drives, if you order drives with them, or if you want to order drives separately and then add your own hard drives, you can. So Synology is one of these companies that markets these, and you can see, you know, this one's got drive bays for six hard drives. This one's a smaller one that has drives for four disks. All right, so this one's $560. It does come with some drives in it. So, you know, it's got 4 hard drives, probably in a RAID, something similar to a RAID 5 configuration. They have wire, you know, Ethernet ports in the back. So you plug them into your network, they get assigned an address. You can access them. You can share files too on the internet. So if you open them up and provide links, you can actually share files out with people on the internet, which is handy as well if you're doing, you know, group projects or something like that. Now, FreeNAS is software that you can. Oh, it's actually now they switched the name to TrueNAS, it looks like. All right, so we built one of these in the classroom, and this is basically open source software that you would run on a computer. You can run this software off of a flash drive, right? So it doesn't require a large amount of data storage space just for the operating, essentially firmware, the operating system. And so the idea is if you want to build yourself a network attached storage, you can build it out of a regular computer. So you just buy a computer case that holds lots of hard drives. You'd install FreeNAS to either one of the drives or to a flash drive, and then it builds your RAID array and makes it accessible on the network. So this was a pretty good option for us to build our own network attached storage for the classroom. This came up a few years ago. We had some students that were working, I'll stop the share there. So a few years ago, I had some students that we built one in the classroom, and then they went to work for one of the local fruit warehouses, and they were going to buy a network attached storage, but they were buying one that was quite large. So they're like, oh no, we can build one, right? So so they did FreeNAS. They built up a pretty decent server case with a bunch of hard drives in it. Installed at the time, it was called FreeNAS. Now it looks like they're calling it TrueNAS. But this is open source as well. So if you are interested in something like that, or maybe building like a home server, I'm sure some of you guys have like you know, files that you want to keep track of at home. This incorporates RAID and redundancy, but also the idea of network attached storage. You could do something similar with Windows, you know, it's just setting up shared folders. But in this case, this is very expandable. You know, it's just kind of cool that they have this, and the fact that it's open source means that you can set this up and your cost is just the hardware. So case, power supply, hard drives, all that stuff. And you could set up a pretty fancy, let's see here. Pretty fancy NAS setup here. So let's see here. How big is it here? Just trying to see how big the download was. Not very big, because yeah, we put it on a flash drive before. So, all righty. At any rate, NAS, and that's different than a. So they have network attached storage, and they have storage area networks, which is kind of a similar acronym, but a whole different ball game. So, so yeah, just a little bit of comments. Yeah, they're pretty handy. Like I say, we had it. It's easily accessible through just browsing the network or setting up mapped network drives. So you'd have the server name, the NAS files that are set up. The other thing that you can do is that they're managed in the sense that you can set up user accounts, and certain users can have read-write privileges, and certain users can just have read privileges. So you can have management. So some users can manage the NAS, and then others can just like make use of it, that sort of thing. Okay, so for tonight, I'm going to get your software quiz up and running. That's my homework for tonight. For you guys, it's under the hardware class. I will cross-post it. But under discussions, I think is where I threw it. Oh, I didn't put a title on it. My bad. All right. All right, so it's under discussions, and I'll just call it request for quotation. But what I'm asking you guys to do is take a look at it, and then we can make edits to it. So if you want to go, more RAM on the video card, or if we want to get more specific on the processors, like I was pretty general on the processors, just stating that it had to be a quad core, which is pretty open. You guys think you need more than 16 gigs of RAM these days? Is that still a good starting point?
Oh, you always max it out.
More RAM, more is always better, right? The hard drive, we might want to go bigger on the hard drive, like I said, for the solid state drive. Martin, that's a very interesting question. Sorry.
Yeah, the hard drive 250, like what? I would just go for a terabyte. And there's a new floor for pricing for them. There's a new
Yeah, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte.
For the solid state drives?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's put those in the comments. So like if it's a discussion thread, so you guys can put stuff into the reply section down at the bottom there. So you can click reply and say, yeah, I want to, maybe 500 gig or 1 terabyte. And, so if there's stuff that's on there that needs to be updated, because like I say, with computers, since this was published before, stuff's changed, getting cheaper. Like I say, I just put a 500 gig drive that was solid state in that machine, and it was like $60 for a 500 gig drive. So 1 terabyte that's solid state for a desktop machine, that's, that would not be out of line at all. So, okay, so put some comments on the thread there. I'll get your quiz going for your software class. Yeah, I'd like to see maybe some, upgrades on that, and then also for price. How much do you think, do we want to set a price of $1,500, $2,000? That doesn't include the monitor. That's kind of an add-on price. So this is just for the basic machine. And then also it has to include Windows as well, which is like another 100 and some odd bucks for Windows. So, yes, Greg says 64 gigs of RAM. I could see going to 32, but and especially if you're running virtualization, but otherwise 16 is probably okay for most stuff. So. So Caden's saying his family used to have a NAS before they switched over to Amazon Prime. So Amazon does let you upload pictures for free. So if your primary goal is storing pictures or photos, digital photographs, Amazon is a good route for that. Although I've often wondered, like if you quit paying if you're not an Amazon Prime member anymore, where does all your data go? You probably lose access to it, I'm guessing, but.
Got him.
Yeah, I mean, once you spend all that time uploading, thousands of pictures, then people are like, oh, I guess I better stay an Amazon Prime member for the rest of my life. And then what happens to all those pictures?
It's all a simulation anyways. It's fine.
Yeah. Or if you die, then what happens to your accounts, right? If all your data is up there and your pictures and stuff, I mean, Facebook just keeps going. So
you get uploaded into the virtualization, and then
yeah, part of it.
In the system.
You become part of the metaverse.
So Caden's saying you had movies on your NAS before you went to Amazon for streaming. Yeah, I've used Amazon a little bit and uploaded pictures to it, and it just was taking forever. And I was thinking, okay, well, yeah, the reason I have the NAS set up at home or something kind of like a network attached storage is, yeah, Meta. It's now Meta. Was just simply that for digital photographs. I didn't want to lose them, so I set up kind of a RAID configuration. Yeah, Facebook is going Meta on us, so it's all good. All right, let's break for today. We'll come back and I'll try and be a little more focused for tomorrow. But yeah, take a look at the request for quotation and make any suggestions you want in the discussion thread, and we'll take it from there. So, all right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
That's it.